I woke to the smell of something wrong. Not coffee, not breakfast, smoke, old smoke, the kind that settles into walls and whispers that something happened while you were asleep. I walked down the hall in my undershirt and slippers. The damage hit me before I reached the kitchen. The corner of the living room looked like someone had taken a blowtorch to it. Blackened drywall, melted curtain rod, the carpet curled up at the edges like dried leaves. Marissa stood by the counter, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up when I stopped in the doorway. "Morning," she said. I looked at the wall, then at her. "I left a cigarette on the windowsill last night," she said. "Must have rolled onto the curtain, woke up around 3 and put it out." I didn't move. "It's not that bad," she continued. "We'll get it fixed." Owen came down the stairs, still half asleep. He saw the wall and stopped. "Jesus," he said. "It's fine," Marissa told him. "Just cosmetic." Owen looked at me. I looked at the wall. "We should call someone," he said. "Already did," Marissa said. "Guy's coming tomorrow to give an estimate." I walked closer. The damage spread further than it looked from the doorway. The framing behind the drywall was exposed in places. The floor beneath the window was warped. "This isn't cosmetic," I said quietly. Marissa shrugged. "Well, it happened, so now we deal with it." I stood there for a long moment. Owen shifted his weight. Marissa set her phone down. "You can stay in the treehouse for now," she said. "We'll take your room until repairs are done." I turned to look at her. "The treehouse," I repeated. "Just temporary," she said. "The contractor said it could take a few weeks, maybe a month. The smoke smell is pretty bad in here. You don't want to breathe that in at your age." Owen looked at the floor, then at me, then at the floor again. "That makes sense, Dad," he said. "Just until everything's fixed." I smiled briefly. Not because I agreed, not because I thought it was fair. I smiled because something inside me went very still. "All right," I said. Marissa blinked. "Really?" "Sure," I said. "I built that treehouse. I know it's solid." She looked at Owen. Owen looked relieved. I walked upstairs and packed a blanket, a pillow, and a change of clothes into an old duffel bag. I took my time. I folded everything neatly. When I came back down, Marissa was already moving things into my room. I walked out the back door and crossed the yard. The treehouse sat in the old oak near the fence. I'd built it when Owen was 7. Plywood floor, pitched roof, rope ladder I'd knotted myself. I climbed up and set my bag in the corner. The boards creaked but held. I looked back at the house. Marissa stood in the window of my room, pulling the curtains open. I sat down on the floor and leaned against the wall. Irene was watering her flowers next door. She looked up at me and then looked away without saying anything. I stayed there until the sun went down. When it got dark, I spread the blanket out and lay on my back. The roof was close enough to touch. I remembered measuring the beams, cutting them, hammering every nail myself while Owen handed me the tools. I closed my eyes and listened to the wind move through the branches. That night, I didn't sleep much. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was thinking. The next morning came cold and gray. I woke with stiffness in my back from the hard plywood floor. I climbed down the rope ladder carefully, testing each knot the way I'd taught Owen to do all those years ago. The house looked different in the morning light, quieter, like it was holding its breath. I walked around to the front. A white truck sat in the driveway. The contractor was already there, standing on the porch with a clipboard. Marissa stood in the doorway wearing one of my old robes. Owen stood behind her in sweatpants and a t-shirt. I stayed by the side of the house and watched. The contractor gestured at the damaged wall through the window. Marissa nodded and said something I couldn't hear from where I stood. The man wrote on his clipboard. Owen nodded along with whatever she said. They didn't look for me. They didn't call my name. They didn't wonder where I was. I walked back to the treehouse and sat on the edge of the platform. My legs dangled over the side. The wood beneath me was weathered but solid. I'd used pressure-treated pine for the frame, cedar for the floor. I'd sealed everything twice. 27 years ago, Owen had just turned 7. His mother had left 2 years before that. Just walked out one morning and never came back. No note, no explanation, just gone. I thought maybe if I built him something permanent, something that wouldn't leave, he'd feel less alone. We spent 3 weekends on it. I taught him how to hold a hammer, how to measure twice and cut once, how to check if something was level. He was small then, serious. He listened to every word I said like it mattered. I wondered when that stopped. Irene's dog barked from her yard. She came outside with a watering can and waved at me. "You all right up there?" she called. "Fine," I said. She hesitated. "You need anything?" "I'm good." She nodded slowly, like she wanted to say more but didn't. Then she went back inside. I sat there for another hour, just looking at the house. My house. The one I'd bought 34 years ago when I got the job with the county road service. The one I'd paid off in 20 years. The one where I raised my son alone because his mother decided she didn't want to be a mother anymore. I'd given Owen everything I had. Time, patience, lessons. I never asked him to pay rent after he turned 18. Never asked him to leave when he brought Marissa home and said they were getting married. Never asked them to contribute when they moved in, just until we save up for our own place. That was 6 years ago. I climbed down and walked to the garage. It was detached from the house, tucked in the back corner of the property behind the old oak. I kept my tools there, my workbench, old boxes of records and receipts I'd filed away over the years because that's what you do when you own something. The garage smelled like sawdust and motor oil. Familiar. Safe. I opened one of the boxes on the metal shelf against the back wall. Inside were folders organized by year. I pulled out the one labeled Property Documents. Inside were the original purchase documents. My name, my signature, my loan, my payments. Every single one of them made on time, never late, not once. I looked at them for a long time. The paper was yellowed at the edges, but the ink was still clear. Then I put them back and closed the box. I walked into town. It wasn't far. Half a mile down the road to the main strip where the cafe and the hardware store and the old movie theater sat in a row like they'd been there forever. I stopped at the cafe on the corner and ordered coffee. The place was nearly empty, or just me and an older couple by the window talking quietly over eggs and toast. I sat at the counter and stared at my cup. The coffee was hot and bitter. I drank it slowly. The waitress refilled it without asking. She was young, maybe 25. She had tired eyes. "Rough morning?" she asked. "Something like that," I said. She nodded and moved on. I stayed there for 2 hours. I listened to the couple by the window talk about their grandson who was studying engineering at some college out west. I watched people walk past outside. A woman with a stroller, a man in a suit checking his phone, 2 teenagers laughing about something. Life moving forward like it always does. I thought about the treehouse and the blanket and the way Marissa had said, "You can stay in the treehouse for now," like she was doing me a favor, like it was her decision to make. When I got back to the house, the contractor's truck was gone. Marissa's car was still in the driveway. I walked around to the back and climbed up into the treehouse. I lay down and stared at the roof. The wood grain ran in long parallel lines. I'd chosen each board carefully. No knots, no cracks, nothing that would weaken over time. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I was awake. 3 days passed like water. Slow, steady, unremarkable. The contractor came back each morning and started tearing out the damaged drywall. The sound of hammering and sawing filled the house from morning until late afternoon. I stayed in the treehouse or walked into town. I didn't ask questions. I didn't complain. Marissa moved more of her things into my room. Clothes, shoes, a lamp I'd never seen before. She rearranged the furniture, pushed my dresser into the corner, and replaced it with a smaller one she brought up from the basement. Owen helped her carry it. I watched from the backyard. He saw me standing there and waved. I waved back. They didn't ask if I needed anything. On the 4th day, I went to the hardware store. I needed screws for a loose board in the treehouse. The store smelled like paint and fresh-cut lumber. I walked down the aisle slowly, looking at the bins of nails and bolts and fasteners. While I was there, I overheard 2 men talking near the paint aisle. One was tall with gray hair. The other was shorter, wearing a baseball cap. "Yeah, my brother-in-law tried that," the tall one said. "Thought he could just move in and take over. Turns out the old man still had his name on everything. Threw him out in a week." The shorter man laughed. "Smart." "You gotta protect what's yours," the tall one said. "People think family means they can do whatever they want." I bought the screws and left. That night, I sat in the garage with the door closed. I pulled out the box again and opened it. I took out the folder with the property documents. I took out the mortgage records showing the final payment made in 2016. I took out the receipts for every repair I'd ever made on the house. New roof in 2011. Cost me $12,000. Furnace replacement in 2015, another $8,000. Plumbing work in 2018 when the pipes under the kitchen started leaking. $4,000. My name, my money, my house. I made copies of everything at the library the next morning. The librarian was a woman I'd known for years. She smiled when I walked in. "Felix," she said, "haven't seen you in a while." "Been busy," I said. "What can I help you with?" "Just need to make some copies." She showed me to the machine. I copied every document. Clean, clear copies. No smudges, no folds. Perfect. I stored the originals back in the garage and put the copies in a smaller folder. I kept that folder with me. When I got back, Marissa was in the kitchen making lunch. She looked up when I walked in. "Where have you been?" she asked. "Out," I said. She frowned. "Out where?" "Just out." She stared at me for a moment, then went back to cutting vegetables. Contractor said the repairs will take at least 3 more weeks, maybe 4. "All right," I said. "You okay with the treehouse that long?" "I'm fine," I said. She shrugged. "Good, because we're getting used to that room. It's got better light than the guest room. Better closet space, too." I nodded and walked outside. Owen was sitting on the back porch, drinking a beer. He looked up when I passed. "Hey, Dad." "Hey. You doing okay out there?" "I'm fine." He nodded. Good. Let me know if you need anything." "I will." I kept walking. Inside the treehouse, I opened the folder and looked at the documents again. I read every word, every line, every clause. Then I closed the folder and set it beside my blanket. That night, I made a phone call. I'd helped a man named Richard Cole about 15 years ago. His car had broken down on a county road during a storm, and I'd stopped to help him change the tire. We talked for a while as the rain pounded the roof of my truck. He gave me his card and told me if I ever needed legal advice to call him. I'd kept the card in my wallet ever since. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Richard Cole." "Mr. Cole, this is Felix Harlow. I don't know if you remember me, but..." "Felix, of course I remember. How are you?" "I'm fine. I need to ask you something." "Go ahead." "If someone is living in your house, and you never transferred ownership, and they're using damage as an excuse to take over a room, can they do that?" He paused. "Is this your house?" "Yes." "And your name is on the deed?" "Yes." "And their family?" "My son and his wife." Another pause. Longer this time. "Have you asked them to leave?" "No." "Do you want them to leave?" I didn't answer right away. I looked out at the house. The lights were on in my old room. I could see Marissa's shadow moving across the window. "I don't know yet," I said, "but I want to know my options." "Come see me tomorrow," he said. "We'll talk." I hung up and sat in the treehouse. The wind moved through the branches. The leaves rustled. The house was lit up in the distance like a stage. I lay down and closed my eyes. Tomorrow. The next morning, I woke early. The sun hadn't come up yet. I climbed down from the treehouse and walked to the garage. Inside, I opened the toolbox on my workbench and pulled out a small flashlight. I tested it. The beam was strong. I put it back and closed the toolbox. Then I walked into town. The streets were empty. The cafe wasn't open yet. I stood outside and waited. At 6:30, the waitress unlocked the door and turned on the lights. "You're here early," she said. "Couldn't sleep," I said. She poured me coffee without asking. I sat at the counter and drank it slowly. The sun came up outside. The street started to fill with cars. At 8:30, I walked to Richard Cole's office. Richard Cole's office was on the 2nd floor of a brick building downtown. The building was old but well-maintained. The stairs creaked under my feet. I arrived at 9 in the morning. The receptionist looked up when I walked in. "Felix Harlow?" she asked. "Yes. Go right in. He's expecting you." I walked through the door into a small office with wood paneling and tall windows. Richard stood when I entered. He was older now, grayer, but he still had the same calm way of moving. "Felix?" he said, shaking my hand. "Sit down." I sat in the chair across from his desk. He poured 2 cups of coffee from a carafe on the shelf behind him and handed me one. Then he sat across from me and folded his hands on the desk. "Tell me what's going on," he said. I told him. The cigarette, the damage, the treehouse, the way Marissa had told me to stay outside, the way Owen had agreed without hesitation, the way they moved into my room like it belonged to them. Richard listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "Do you have the deed?" he asked. I pulled the folder from my bag and handed it to him. He opened it and scanned the documents. Then he looked up. "This is all in your name," he said. "I know." "Did you ever add your son to the deed?" "No." "Did you ever sign anything giving them rights to the property?" "No." "Did you ever receive rent from them?" "No." "Did you ever create any written agreement about their living situation?" "No. They said they'd save up and move out. That was 6 years ago." He leaned back in his chair and looked out the window for a moment. Then he looked back at me. "Then they're occupants, not owners, not tenants. You have the right to set the terms of their stay. You also have the right to ask them to leave." "What if they refuse?" "Then you follow the eviction process. It's legal, it's clean, and it's enforceable." I looked at the documents on his desk. How long does that take? Depends on the jurisdiction. Could be a few weeks, could be 2 months. But it's your house, Felix. That doesn't change just because they're family. I nodded slowly. What do you want to do? He asked. I don't know yet, I said, but I want to be ready. Then let's get everything documented. I'll prepare a formal notice of occupancy termination. You don't have to use it, but if you do, it'll be ready. All right. He made some notes on a legal pad. Then he looked at me again. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why did you let it get this far? I didn't answer right away. I looked out the window. The street below was busy, people walking, cars passing, life moving forward like it always does. I thought if I stayed quiet, I said, things would settle on their own. And did they? No, he nodded. Silence isn't always peace, Felix. Sometimes it's just surrender. I finished my coffee and stood. Thank you. Call me when you're ready, he said. And Felix? I stopped at the door. Don't wait too long, he said. The longer this goes on, the harder it gets. I left his office and walked to the bank. I'd been banking at the same branch for 30 years. The building was small and brick with a drive-through window on the side. The manager recognized me when I walked in and waved me over. Felix, good to see you. What can I do for you? I need to make sure my accounts are separate, I said. No joint access, no shared names. She frowned. Is everything okay? Just making sure things are clear. She nodded and pulled up my account on her computer. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard. Looks like everything's already in your name only. No secondary account holders, no authorized users. Good. Do you want to set up any additional restrictions? We can flag the account to require in-person verification for any changes. Yes, I said. Do that. She typed some more. Then she printed out a summary and handed it to me. You're all set. Anything else? That's it, thank you. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. Next, I went to the contractor's office. It was in a small industrial park on the edge of town. Gregory Hale was sitting behind his desk, reviewing blueprints. He looked up when I knocked on the open door. Mr. Harlow, he said. Come in. I sat down in the chair across from him. The office smelled like coffee and dust. I wanted to ask about the timeline, I said. Sure, should be about 3 more weeks. Maybe less if the materials come in early. We're waiting on some specialty drywall compound. Should arrive by Friday. And who's responsible for payment? He blinked. Well, the work order was signed by your daughter-in-law, but the house is in your name, so technically... I'll handle payment, I said. Just wanted to make sure we're clear. Of course, I'll send the final invoice to you directly. Do you want me to copy anyone else? No, just me. Got it. He made a note on the work order. Anything else? One more thing. When you're done, I want a complete list of everything that was replaced. Materials, labor, everything. He looked at me for a moment. Sure, I can do that. Thank you. I stood and walked to the door. Mr. Harlow? I turned. Everything all right? He asked. Everything's fine, I said. Just making sure there's no confusion. I left his office and walked home. The walk took 30 minutes. I didn't rush. I watched the houses go by, the lawns, the cars in the driveways, people living their lives. When I got back, Marissa and Owen were sitting on the couch, watching something on TV. They didn't look up when I walked in. I went straight to the garage and locked the door behind me. I opened the folder again and reviewed everything Richard had given me, the legal explanation, the ownership confirmation, the process outline. I read it twice, then I put it back in the box and covered it with an old tarp. I climbed up into the treehouse and lay down. The sun was starting to set. The sky turned orange and pink. The repairs were almost done. That's what Gregory had said. 3 more weeks. Maybe less. I could wait 3 more weeks. I closed my eyes and listened to the wind move through the leaves. The days started to blur together after that. I woke in the treehouse. I climbed down. I walked into town or sat in the garage. I came back at night and climbed back up. Marissa and Owen moved through the house like I wasn't there. She redecorated my room completely. New curtains, new bedspread, a small desk in the corner where she put her laptop and a lamp with a green shade. She hung pictures I'd never seen before. Family photos, but not of me, not of Owen as a child, of her parents, her friends, her life before Owen. Owen helped her. He carried things up the stairs. He hung the pictures where she told him to. He laughed when she made jokes about finally having a nice space and getting things the way we want them. I watched from the backyard, through the window, silent. Irene came over one afternoon while I was sitting on the treehouse platform. I was reading an old book I'd found in the garage, something about carpentry techniques. "Felix," she called up, "can I talk to you?" "Sure." She climbed up halfway and stopped on the ladder. She was breathing hard. "This doesn't seem right," she said. "What doesn't?" "You. Out here, in the treehouse, while they're inside, in your room, in your house." I didn't say anything. "It's your house," she said. "You know that, right?" "I know." "Then why?" "I'm handling it," I said. She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes were sharp. She'd seen a lot in her 58 years. She wasn't easily fooled. "You better be," she said, "because this isn't right." Then she climbed back down. That night, I went to the notary office downtown. I'd called ahead and made an appointment. The notary was a woman in her 40s with reading glasses on a chain and a calm demeanor. "What do you need notarized?" she asked. I handed her the documents Richard had prepared. She read through them carefully, line by line, page by page. Then she looked up. "You're confirming ownership and occupancy terms?" "Yes." "And you want this notarized for legal purposes?" "Yes." She stamped the documents with a heavy metal stamp. Then she signed them in blue ink. Then she handed them back. "Keep these somewhere safe," she said. "I will." "And good luck," she added quietly. I left and walked home. It was late. The street lights were on. The house was dark except for one light in my old room. Marissa's shadow moved across the window. I climbed up into the treehouse and put the documents in my bag. Then I lay down and stared at the roof. 2 more weeks. That's what Gregory had said when I saw him that morning. 2 more weeks and the repairs would be finished. I could wait 2 more weeks. The next morning, I woke to the sound of hammering. The contractor's crew was back. They were finishing the drywall. The sound echoed across the yard. I climbed down and walked to the garage. I pulled out the box and checked the documents one more time. Everything was in order. Everything was clear. I closed the box and covered it again. When I came out, Owen was standing by the back door. He had a cup of coffee in his hand. "Hey, Dad." "Hey." "Contractor said they'll be done by the end of next week." "I heard." "So you'll be able to come back inside soon?" I looked at him. "Will I?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "Nothing," I said. "Just asking." He shifted his weight. "Marissa and I were talking. We might keep your room, since we're already set up in there. You could take the guest room. It's smaller, but it's still nice. And you wouldn't have to move all your stuff back. We could just—" "We'll see," I said. He blinked. "We'll see?" "Yeah." I walked past him and went inside. Marissa was in the kitchen making coffee. The smell filled the room. "Morning," she said without looking up. "Morning." "Contractor said they're almost done." "I know." "Good, because Owen and I are planning a little get-together next weekend. Just a few friends. We'll probably use the living room, so if you could stay out of the way, that'd be great." I poured myself a cup of coffee. "This is my house." She looked up. "What?" I said, "This is my house." She laughed. Not a real laugh. A dismissive one. "Well, yeah, but we all live here." "Do we?" She frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said. "Just making an observation." I took my coffee and walked outside. Owen followed me. "Dad, what's going on?" "Nothing." "You're acting weird." "Am I?" "Yeah, you are. You've been acting strange for days now." I turned to face him. "When the repairs are done, I want everyone home." "What?" "I want you and Marissa here, in the living room, when the contractor finishes." "Why?" "Just be here." He stared at me. "Okay, sure. We'll be here." "Good." I walked back to the treehouse and climbed up. 1 more week. The week passed slowly. The contractor's crew finished the drywall. They painted. They replaced the damaged flooring. They cleaned up the debris. I watched from a distance. I didn't interfere. I didn't ask questions. Marissa bought new furniture for my room, a chair, a side table. She arranged everything the way she wanted it. Owen helped her move things around. He seemed happy, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. I stayed quiet. On Wednesday, Gregory stopped by to show me the progress. He walked me through the living room and pointed out the new drywall, the fresh paint, the replaced baseboard. "Looks good, right?" he said. "It does." "Should be completely done by Friday. Just need to do a final coat on the trim and we're finished." "Thank you." He nodded. "Invoice will be ready Friday afternoon. I'll drop it off. I'll be here." He left. I stood in the living room and looked at the wall where the damage had been. You couldn't tell anything had happened. It looked perfect, like nothing had ever been wrong. Friday arrived cold and clear. The sun came up bright. The air smelled like autumn. I woke early in the treehouse. I packed my belongings carefully. The blanket, the pillow, the few clothes I'd kept up there. I put everything in the duffel bag. Then I climbed down and walked to the garage. I unlocked the door and went inside. I pulled out the box from under the tarp. I opened it and took out the folder with all the documents. I stood there for a long moment, holding the folder in my hands. Then I walked to the house and let myself in through the back door. The contractor's truck pulled up at 9. Gregory got out with his clipboard and a small toolbox. He knocked on the front door. Marissa answered. She was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. Her hair was tied back. "Morning," Gregory said. "Just need about an hour to finish up." "Sure," Marissa said. "Do what you need to do." He went to work on the trim. I watched from the kitchen. At 10:30, he finished. He packed up his tools and walked to the kitchen where I was standing. "All done," he said. He handed me the invoice. "Everything's itemized like you asked." "Thank you," I said. "Pleasure working with you, Mr. Harlow." He left. I looked at the invoice. Materials, labor. Everything was listed clearly. The total was at the bottom, $7,300. I folded the invoice and put it in the folder. Marissa came into the kitchen. "So, we're all done?" "We are." "Great. Now we can finally relax." Owen came downstairs. "Repairs finished?" "Just now," I said. "Awesome. Place looks great." Marissa poured herself coffee. "I was thinking we could have people over tonight, celebrate getting the house back to normal." "Actually," I said, "I need to talk to both of you." She frowned. "About what?" "Sit down." Owen looked at Marissa. Marissa looked at me. "Just sit," I said. They walked into the living room and sat on the couch. I followed them. I stood in front of them and opened the folder. I placed the first document on the coffee table. "This is the deed to the house. My name, my signature, my property." Marissa glanced at it. "Okay, so?" I placed the second document on the table. "This is the mortgage record. Paid off in 2016, fully in my name." Owen's expression shifted. His face went pale. "Dad, what are you doing?" I placed the third document on the table. "This is the repair invoice. In my name, my responsibility. Because this is my house." Marissa leaned back. "We know it's your house. What's your point?" I looked at her directly. "My point is that I never gave you permission to take my room. I never agreed to live in the treehouse, and I never transferred ownership to anyone." Owen stood up. "Dad, come on. You were just what?" I asked. "Helping me." "It was temporary," Marissa said. "The smoke was bad. You thought you could move me out of my own room and I'd just accept it." She opened her mouth, then closed it. I placed the fourth document on the table. "This is a legal notice confirming my ownership and your status as occupants. It's notarized. It's enforceable." The room went silent. Marissa picked up the document and read it. Her face went red. "This is a notice to vacate," she said. "That's right. You're kicking us out?" "I'm reclaiming my house. We've been living here for 6 years. In my house, on my terms. Terms you decided to ignore." Owen looked at me. His eyes were wide. "Dad, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." "This is insane," Marissa said. Her voice was rising. "Owen, tell him this is insane." Owen looked at me, then at her, then at the documents on the table. He said nothing. "I tried to be patient," I said. "I tried to keep the peace, but you treated me like I was in the way, like I didn't matter, like this wasn't mine." "We were helping," Marissa said. "The repairs had to happen. We gave you the treehouse because you wanted my room," I said, "and you thought I'd let you keep it." She stared at me. "You're really doing this?" "I really am." Owen finally spoke. His voice was quiet. "Dad, please, we can talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "The documents are clear. The law is clear. You have 30 days to find another place to live." Marissa stood up. She was shaking. "This is unbelievable." "The notice is legal," I said. "I had it prepared by a lawyer. Everything's documented. Everything's by the book." "We'll fight this," she said. "You can try, but you'll lose. You're not on the deed. You never paid rent. You have no legal claim to this property." She grabbed her purse from the side table. "This is unbelievable. Owen, are you seriously just going to stand there?" Owen looked at me. His face was pale. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. 30 days, I said quietly. Marissa walked to the door. "Fine. We'll find somewhere else. Somewhere better, where we're actually wanted." "Good," I said. She slammed the door on her way out. Owen stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the documents on the table. He looked lost. "Dad," he said quietly. 30 days, I repeated. He nodded once. Then he followed Marissa out the door. I stood alone in the living room. The house was silent. The walls were clean. The damage was gone. But I wasn't done yet. I walked upstairs to my old room. Marissa's things were everywhere. The new curtains, the new bedspread, the pictures on the wall, the desk in the corner. I started taking them down, one by one. I folded the bedspread and set it on the floor. I took the pictures off the wall and stacked them by the door. I pulled the desk away from the corner and pushed my old dresser back into place. It took 2 hours. When I was done, the room looked like mine again. I opened the window and let the air in. Then I walked back downstairs. I made myself lunch. I ate slowly. I washed the dishes. I dried them. I put them away. Everything in its place. That evening, Irene knocked on my door. I opened it. "Felix," she said, "I saw them leave with suitcases." "They'll be back," I said. "They have 30 days. She looked at me carefully. "You did it." "I did." "Good," she said. "It's about time." I nodded. "If you need anything," she said, "let me know." "I will, thank you." She walked back to her house. I closed the door and stood in the hallway. The house was quiet, but it was mine. I walked upstairs and lay down on my bed. My real bed, in my room. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the house settle around me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The next morning, I woke in my own bed. The sunlight came through the window at the angle I remembered. The room smelled like fresh paint and wood polish. I got up and made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table and drank it slowly. Owen's car pulled into the driveway around noon. He came in through the front door. Marissa wasn't with him. "Dad," he said. "Owen." He stood in the doorway, his hands in his pockets. "Can we talk?" "Go ahead." He walked into the kitchen and sat across from me. He looked tired. His eyes were red. "Marissa's really upset," he said. "I imagine she is. She thinks you're being unreasonable." "Does she?" "Dad, come on. We've been living here for 6 years. You can't just kick us out." I set my coffee cup down. "Owen, whose name is on the deed?" He looked at the table. "Yours." "And who paid for this house?" "You did." "And who paid for the repairs?" He didn't answer. "I did," I said. "All of it. Every single thing. This is my house. It always has been." "But we're family," he said quietly. "Family doesn't treat each other the way you two treated me." He looked up. "What are you talking about?" "You sent me to live in a treehouse, Owen, in my own backyard, and you didn't even think twice about it." "It was temporary. It was humiliating." He blinked. "Dad, You stood there and agreed with her. You didn't even ask if I was okay with it. You just nodded and walked away." "I thought..." "You thought what? That I wouldn't mind? That I'd just accept it?" He looked down again. "I didn't think about it like that." "No, you didn't think about it at all." We sat in silence for a long moment. The clock on the wall ticked. "So that's it?" Owen said finally. "You're just going to kick us out?" "You have 30 days, I said. "That's more than fair." "Where are we supposed to go?" "That's not my problem. You've had 6 years to save up and move out. You chose not to." He stood up. "This is wrong, Dad." "No," I said. "What's wrong is the way you treated me. What's wrong is the way you let her treat me. What's wrong is the way you forgot whose house this is." He stared at me. Then he walked to the door. "I'll tell Marissa," he said. "You do that." He left. I finished my coffee and went outside. The treehouse was still there, standing in the old oak. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I climbed up one last time. I sat on the platform and looked at the house. My house. I thought about all the years I'd spent building a life here, all the work, all the sacrifice, all the compromises I'd made to keep the peace. I was done compromising. I climbed down and went back inside. The next few days passed quietly. Owen came by twice more to pack things. Marissa didn't come at all. She sent her sister instead. A woman I'd met once at their wedding? She didn't say much, just carried boxes to the car. I stayed out of their way. I let them take what was theirs. I didn't interfere. On the 10th day, Owen came by one more time. He stood in the living room with his hands in his pockets. "We found a place," he said. "Good. It's small, but it's ours." "That's what you wanted." He looked at me. "Is it?" You've been saying you wanted your own place for 6 years, Owen? Now you'll have it. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I guess so. You guess? He looked away. Marissa's still really angry. She'll get over it. Will she? I didn't answer. He walked to the door, then he stopped. Dad, do you hate us? I looked at him. No, I don't hate you. Then why? Because I got tired of being invisible in my own house, I said. I got tired of being treated like I didn't matter. He stood there for a moment. Then he nodded and left. I watched through the window as he got in his car and drove away. That night, I sat in the living room and looked at the wall where the damage had been. You couldn't tell anything had happened. It looked perfect, but I knew what it had cost. I knew what it had taken, and I knew it was worth it. 2 weeks passed. Owen and Marissa moved their things out slowly. A few boxes at a time, a few pieces of furniture. They didn't rush. They didn't make a scene. Marissa still didn't speak to me. She communicated through Owen or her sister. When she came by, she walked past me like I wasn't there. I didn't mind. On the 18th day, I got a call from Richard Cole. Felix, he said, how's everything going? They're moving out, I said. Should be done in another week or so. Any problems? None. They're following the notice. Good, that's what we want. Clean and legal. Thank you for your help. That's what I'm here for. And Felix? Yes? You did the right thing. I hung up and sat at the kitchen table. I looked around the room, my house. It felt different now, lighter, like something heavy had been lifted. That afternoon, Irene came over with a casserole. Thought you might be hungry, she said. Thank you. She set it on the counter. They're really leaving? They are. How do you feel about that? I thought about it. Relieved. She nodded. Good. You deserve to be comfortable in your own home? I do. She patted my arm. If you need anything, you know where I am. I do. Thank you, Irene. She left. I heated up the casserole and ate it at the table. It was good. Chicken and rice and vegetables. I ate slowly and thought about everything that had happened. The cigarette, the damage, the treehouse, the way they'd treated me like I was in the way, and the way I'd stayed quiet. Too quiet. For too long. But I wasn't quiet anymore. That night, I walked through the house and turned on every light. I stood in each room and looked around. The kitchen where I'd made breakfast for Owen every morning when he was a kid. The living room where we'd watched movies on Friday nights. The hallway where I'd hung pictures of him growing up. My room where I'd slept for 34 years. All of it mine. All of it earned. All of it worth fighting for. I turned off the lights one by one and went to bed. The next morning, Owen came by with the last of their things. He loaded them into a moving truck parked in the driveway. I watched from the porch. When he was done, he walked over to me. That's everything, he said. All right. We'll be out by the end of the week. Good. He looked at the house, then at me. Do you think we'll ever talk again? I don't know, I said honestly. He nodded. I'm sorry, Dad, for how things went, for not standing up for you. I know. But I still think you're being unfair. I looked at him. Unfair? We were family. We were living together. We were trying to make it work. Owen, you sent me to live in a treehouse. It was temporary. It shouldn't have happened at all. He looked down. I know. Do you? Do you really? He didn't answer. You made a choice, I said. You chose her over me. You chose comfort over respect. And now you're dealing with the consequences. She's my wife. And I'm your father. And this is my house. He stood there for a moment. Then he walked to the truck and got in. I watched him drive away. 3 days later, they were gone. Completely. The room was empty. The closet was empty. There was nothing left of them. I stood in the doorway and looked at the empty space. Then I started cleaning. I scrubbed the floors. I washed the walls. I dusted every surface. I opened the windows and let fresh air in. It took all day. When I was done, the room smelled clean, fresh, new. I brought my things back in. My dresser, my clothes, my books, everything I'd kept in storage in the garage. I arranged everything the way I liked it, the way it had been before they came. When I was finished, I sat on the bed and looked around. My room, my house, my life, back the way it should be. That night, I made dinner for myself, steak and potatoes. I ate at the table and listened to the silence. It was a good silence, a peaceful silence. Not the silence of surrender, the silence of victory. I washed the dishes, I dried them, I put them away. Then I walked through the house one more time, turning off lights. Everything was in its place. Everything was as it should be. I went to bed and slept better than I had in months. The weeks after they left passed quietly. I fell into a routine. Wake up, coffee, breakfast, work in the garage, lunch, walk into town, dinner, read, sleep, simple, peaceful, mine. Irene checked on me a few times. She'd wave from her yard or knock on the door with leftovers. "You doing okay?" she'd ask. "I'm doing fine," I'd say. And I was. The house felt different now, lighter, like a weight had been lifted from the walls themselves. I walked through the rooms without that constant tension in my shoulders, without wondering what Marissa would say, without watching Owen avoid my eyes. I started making changes, small ones at first. I moved the couch back to where it had been before they rearranged everything. I hung pictures I'd taken down years ago, pictures of Owen as a child, pictures of the house when I first bought it. I repainted the kitchen, a lighter color, something that made the morning sun look warmer when it came through the window. I replaced the curtains in the living room. The ones Marissa had picked were too dark, too heavy. I wanted something that let the light in. Every change felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd forgotten about. One morning, about a month after they'd left, I was in the garage organizing my tools when I heard a car pull into the driveway. I walked outside. It was Owen. He got out of the car and stood there for a moment, looking at the house. He seemed smaller somehow, thinner, tired. "Dad," he said. "Owen, can I come in?" "It's my house," I said. "I'll decide who comes in." He looked at me. His eyes were red, like he hadn't been sleeping. "Please." I nodded and walked to the front door. He followed. Inside, we sat in the living room. The same spot where I'd given them the notice. The same coffee table where I'd laid out all those documents. "How's the new place?" I asked. "It's fine. Small, but it's ours." "Good." "Marissa's still angry." "I figured." He looked around the room, really looked, taking it all in. "Place looks good, different." "I cleaned it up, made some changes." "I can tell." He paused. "You moved the couch back?" "I did." "It looks better here." "I know." We sat in silence for a moment. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, the sound of a car passing outside. "Why did you come here, Owen?" I asked. He looked at me. "I wanted to understand." "Understand what?" "Why you did it. Why you kicked us out. Why you chose the house over family." I leaned back in my chair. I didn't choose the house over family. I chose respect over disrespect. But we're your family. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. "We made a mistake, Dad. Can't you forgive us?" "I can forgive you," I said. "But that doesn't mean things go back to the way they were." "Why not?" "Because I learned something, Owen. I learned that silence doesn't keep the peace. It just lets people walk all over you, and I'm done being walked on." He looked down at his hands. "I'm sorry." "I know you are. But sorry doesn't change what happened. Sorry doesn't give me back those weeks in the treehouse. Sorry doesn't erase the way you looked at me when Marissa said I should sleep outside. I didn't know what to do. You could have stood up for me. You could have said no. You could have remembered that I'm your father and this is my house. She's my wife. And I raised you. I fed you. I clothed you. I taught you everything you know. And when she told you to send me outside, you did it without a second thought." He stood up. "I should go." "All right." He walked to the door. Then he stopped. "Do you miss us?" he asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. "I miss who you used to be. Before Marissa, before you forgot where you came from. Before you stopped seeing me as your father and started seeing me as an inconvenience." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I miss that too." "Then maybe you should figure out how to find that person again." "How?" "That's for you to figure out, not me." He left. I sat in the living room for a long time after he was gone. I thought about Owen as a kid, the way he used to look at me like I had all the answers, the way he used to help me with projects around the house, the way we used to sit on the porch and talk about nothing and everything. But people change. Situations change. And sometimes you have to let go of who someone was to deal with who they are. I got up and made lunch. I ate at the table. I washed the dishes. I dried them. I put them away. Everything in its proper place. Life moved forward. A few weeks later, I was at the hardware store picking up supplies when I ran into Gregory Hale, the contractor. "Felix," he said, "how are you?" "Good. House is holding up well. Glad to hear it. That was a tricky repair. You did good work. Thanks. He hesitated. I heard your son and his wife moved out. They did? Everything okay? Everything's fine. Better than fine, actually. He nodded slowly. Well, if you need anything else, you know where to find me. I do, thank you. I paid for my supplies and left. On the drive home, I thought about how people must be talking. Small town, everyone knows everyone's business. The contractor, the librarian, the woman at the bank. But I didn't care. Let them talk. I knew the truth. I knew what happened. I knew why I did what I did. And that was enough. That evening, I sat on the back porch and looked at the treehouse. It was still standing, solid, strong. The rope ladder swayed slightly in the breeze. I thought about taking it down, getting rid of it, erasing that reminder of what they'd done. But I didn't. It was a reminder of where I'd been, of what I'd endured, of what I'd overcome. And more than that, it was proof that I could build something that lasted, something that weathered storms and time and neglect, just like I had. I left it standing. The next morning, I woke early and made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table and watched the sun come up through the window. The light came in at just the right angle now. Warm, golden, perfect. The house was quiet, but it was a good quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from peace, not surrender, not the silence of someone who's given up, the silence of someone who's won. I finished my coffee and went outside. The air was cool, the sky was clear, spring was coming. I could feel it in the way the wind moved, in the way the birds sang. I walked to the garage and opened the door. Inside, everything was organized. Tools on the wall, boxes labeled and stacked neatly, everything in its place. I'd built this life, board by board, nail by nail, decision by decision, and I'd protected it when I needed to. Not with force, not with rage, with records, with the law, with patience, with the long game. I closed the garage door and walked back to the house. My house. The one I'd bought. The one I'd paid for. The one I'd maintained and repaired and loved for 34 years. And I was never giving it up again. Not for anyone. I walked inside and closed the door behind me. The lock clicked into place. Solid. Secure. Final. I stood in the hallway and looked around. Everything was exactly as it should be. 3 months passed. Fall turned to winter. The leaves fell from the trees. The air turned cold. Snow came early that year. Heavy and thick, I settled into my life. Alone but not lonely. Comfortable, content. Owen called once in a while. Short conversations. How are you? I'm fine. How's the house? It's good. The weather, work, surface things. We didn't talk about what happened. We didn't need to. It hung between us like a wall we both knew was there, but neither of us wanted to acknowledge. Marissa never called. I didn't expect her to. One afternoon in late November, I was in the garage working on an old chair I'd found at a yard sale. The wood was good, but the joints were loose. I was reinforcing them when I heard someone knock on the front door. I set down my tools and walked out. I saw a car I didn't recognize in the driveway. A black sedan, professional looking. A woman got out. She was young, maybe 30. She had a professional look about her. Dark suit, briefcase, hair pulled back tight. Felix Harlow? She asked. That's me. My name is Faye Moss. I'm an attorney representing Marissa Harlow. I didn't move. Is that right? May I come in? No. She blinked. Mr. Harlow, I just need a few minutes of your time. Say what you need to say from there. She set her briefcase on the hood of her car and pulled out a folder. Her hands moved efficiently, practiced. Mrs. Harlow is contesting the eviction. She believes she has a claim to partial ownership of the property based on 6 years of residency and substantial contributions to household expenses and maintenance. I looked at her. She never paid rent. She never contributed to the mortgage. Her name isn't on the deed. She has no claim. She disagrees. She's prepared to take this to court if necessary. She has documentation of purchases made for the household, receipts for groceries, utility payments, home improvement items, none of which give her ownership rights. A judge might see it differently. Let them. Faye Moss frowned. Mr. Harlow, litigation can be expensive and time-consuming. Wouldn't you rather settle this amicably? Perhaps a financial settlement for her years of... No. Mr. Harlow. She lived in my house rent-free for 6 years. She ate my food. She used my electricity. She slept under my roof. And when there was damage, she sent me to sleep outside like I was the guest. She gets nothing. That's not how the law... The law says the house is mine. Tell Mrs. Harlow that if she wants to waste her money on lawyers, that's her choice. But she won't win. Mr. Harlow, I strongly advise. We're done here. I walked back to the garage and closed the door. Through the window, I watched her stand there for a long moment. She looked frustrated, annoyed. Finally, she got in her car and left. I went back to working on the chair. That evening, I called Richard Cole. "Felix," he said, "what's going on?" I told him about the lawyer, about Marissa's claim, about the receipts she apparently had. He listened quietly. Then he said, "She doesn't have a case. She's claiming household contributions. Doesn't matter. Contributing to household expenses doesn't establish ownership. She'd need to prove she had an agreement with you, a contract, something in writing that gave her an ownership interest. There's nothing like that. Then she has nothing. Let her try. She'll lose. You have all the documentation. You have the deed. You have the mortgage records showing you paid everything. She has grocery receipts. So what do I do? Nothing. If she files, we respond. But she won't win, I promise you that. This is just intimidation. She's hoping you'll settle to avoid court." "I won't." "Good, don't." "Richard?" "Yeah? Thank you. That's what I'm here for. And Felix, don't let this shake you. You did everything right. She's just desperate." I hung up and sat at the kitchen table. I looked around the room, my house, my life. No one was taking it from me. A week later, I got a certified letter in the mail. It was from Fay Moss's law firm. Marissa was filing a civil suit claiming financial interest in the property based on 6 years of cohabitation and household contributions. I read the letter twice, then I called Richard. "I got the letter," I said. "I'll file a response. We'll request dismissal based on lack of merit. Don't worry about it." "I'm not worried. I just want it done." "It will be." The case moved slowly. Depositions, filings, hearings. I showed up to everyone. I brought my documents organized in folders. I answered every question calmly and clearly. Marissa showed up too. She wore professional clothes. Her hair was different, shorter. She wouldn't look at me, not once. Her lawyer argued about contributions, about the years spent maintaining the household, about the expectation of shared ownership that comes with long-term cohabitation. Richard argued about documentation, about the deed, about the mortgage, about the law. Owen came to one of the hearings. He sat in the back row. I saw him when I walked in but didn't acknowledge him. When it was over, he walked over to me in the hallway outside the courtroom. "Dad," he said. "Owen, can we talk?" We walked outside. It was cold. Snow was starting to fall. Thick flakes that stuck to the ground. "This is getting out of hand," he said. "I didn't start it." "Marissa's just trying to protect herself. We're struggling, Dad. The apartment costs more than we thought. We don't have much saved. She's trying to take something that isn't hers. She lived there for 6 years. In my house, that I paid for, that I let her live in rent-free. She helped. She bought groceries. She paid utilities sometimes. That's called contributing to the household you live in. It's not the same as ownership." He looked down. "Can't you just give her something, a settlement, so we can all move on?" "No. Dad, please. This is tearing us apart." "Then maybe you should ask yourself why she's doing this. Why she thinks she's entitled to something that was never hers. She's scared. So was I, when she sent me to sleep in the treehouse. But nobody cared about that. That was different." "How?" He didn't answer. "Owen, I'm not giving her a single thing. Not $1. Not a piece of furniture. Nothing. This is my house. I earned it. And I'm keeping it." He stared at me. "She's my wife. And this is my house. Choose carefully which one you're going to defend." He walked away without another word. I stood in the snow and watched him go. The flakes fell heavy around me, cold, silent, beautiful. I went home and sat by the window. I watched the snow cover the yard. The treehouse disappeared in white. The fence, the garage, everything covered in a clean blanket, like starting over. 2 months later, in January, the judge ruled in my favor. Marissa's claim was dismissed. The ruling was clear and final. Household contributions do not establish ownership interest. The property remained solely in my name. Richard called to give me the news. "Congratulations, Felix. It's over. She can appeal, but she won't win. The ruling is solid. The law is clear." "Thank you, Richard." "You're welcome. And Felix, you should be proud. You stood your ground. You didn't let them intimidate you. A lot of people would have given in. This was my house. I wasn't giving it up. I know. That's why you won." I hung up and sat in the living room. It was over. Finally. Completely. I looked at the wall where the damage had been. You still couldn't tell anything had happened. The paint matched perfectly. The baseboard was smooth. The floor was level. But I remembered. I remembered the smell of smoke. The sound of Marissa's voice telling me to sleep outside. The look on Owen's face when he agreed. And I remembered the moment I decided I wasn't going to accept it anymore. That was the moment everything changed. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the snow was melting. Spring was coming. New season, new beginning. Same house, my house. Spring came slowly. The snow melted. The trees started to bud. The air warmed. I spent my days working in the yard, planting flowers, fixing the fence, repainting the garage door. One afternoon in April, Irene came over. "Felix," she said, "you have a visitor." I walked around to the front. Owen's car was in the driveway. He stood by the door. "Dad," he said. "Owen." "Can we talk?" I unlocked the door. We sat in the living room. "Marissa and I are separating," he said. I didn't respond. "The lawsuit. The money problems. We can't make it work anymore." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" "You're my son. I don't want you to be unhappy." He looked down. "I made a lot of mistakes, didn't I?" "You did." "I should have stood up for you." "Yes." "I'm sorry, Dad." "I know." Silence filled the room. "Do you think we can ever fix this?" he asked. "Maybe, but it'll take time." "How much time?" "However long it takes for you to prove you've learned something." He stood. "I should go." "All right." At the door, he stopped. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for not giving up on what was yours." I watched him leave. Then I walked through the house one final time, room by room. Everything I'd built, everything I'd fought to keep. I stepped outside and looked at the house. My house. I'd won. I'd played the long game.